savvy Soumya Misra and Ranu Bhogal from Oxfam India to kindly give their presentation.
Um, Good morning, and thank you for having us here. And thank you, Rebecca, for going through the entire scenario so clearly and putting everything in perspective. It makes my work easier. Um, because she's mentioned most of the data and most of the larger perspective, I will skip through it. I mean, I'll go through it quickly and then go directly to the Aaroh campaign that Oxfam has been supporting for the last 10 years. Uh, okay, Ranu couldn't be here because she's traveling, so I'll be making the presentation. Um, a couple of months ago, 15th October was declared as Mahila Kisan Divas, and this is a huge victory, I think, for everybody who's working for women land rights with women farmers. And why it is particularly important is because it recognizes women farmers. Women have been working in the fields for a long time. They are the most they're just not considered as farmers, even though they'll be doing most of the work. So, this is a recognition of the fact that they're at least now being seen as farmers. Oxfam India's Aaroh campaign, when we started, the idea was to establish the identity of women farmers, to make them socially acceptable, to make this term Mahila Kisan a mainstream term and not just something which is used as an aberration. And also, it is important for us because 15th October 2006 was when the campaign began. Why this matters is because, as Rebecca mentioned, data on the number of rural women who are engaged in agriculture. So 74% Indian rural women workforce are engaged in agriculture as against 59% of male, yet they are not recognized as farmers. And only 13%, 12.967 or 97% women in India have operational land ownership. But actually, this includes the land lease data, so the actual ownership is much less, and this is only for rural. Um, and this is a marginal increase from what has happened, what we have from the agricultural census in 2001 and 2005 and 6, where it was 10.9 and 11.7, now 12.97. So it's just a marginal increase. It's increasing, but not at a not the way we wanted to. Urban women's property or land rights is not is mostly neglected, and we also don't know what the ownership data is, because there's no sex disaggregated data available. And even when FAO tried to map the ownership of land on male and female, only 16 countries could actually show how much is owned by men and how much by female, because that data isn't available. Why land rights for women is important. Um, as Rebecca mentioned, it is important socially as well as economically. Socially, because it extends the capabilities, expands the negotiating powers, and enhances the ability to address vulnerability. It serves as a critical social protection and a deterrent against gender based violence. It is a no brainer that if a woman is economically empowered, she has more chance of walking out of an abusive relationship. If she is not economically empowered, she'll have to keep going back to that relationship, and she'll never be able to come out of that situation. Studies show a clear correlation between ownership of immovable property, that is land and home, and violence against women. A study in Kerala showed that 49% women without property experience physical violence as against 7% with property. Economically, it's important because it has a direct and positive correlation to economic empowerment, food security, and poverty reduction. Women If women are given equal access to economic resources, including land and agriculture inputs, women's farm in developing countries will increase their productivity by 20 to 30%, which would mean an increase in the overall agriculture production of up to 4%. And it will also enable to pull out nearly 100 to 150 million people out of malnourishment. Uh, Once again, why we needed to go for a campaign like this, because women who do not own land, they have limited access to credit, to government schemes to technology, and this limits the agriculture productivity. And this is particularly important, especially in states which have high migration, where women are left to tend the fields, but because they do not have access, the productivity reduces. And well, farmer suicides is a sad thing which should not happen, but women farmers who commit suicide are not counted because they do not own land, because they're not recognized as farmers. Um, and then, of course, it fits the larger SDG bill, where the target set for the countries to achieve by 2030 is that women secure access to and control over land. And it takes care of two main goals, SDG 2 and 5, which talks about ending hunger, achieving food security and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture, which, if as we saw in the previous slide, if women are given access to credit and agriculture inputs, they're going to increase the productivity. And SDG 5, which talks about achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls, which again would mean that if you are economically empowering women, they will be able to stand for themselves and not be in any kind of an abusive relationship. So these were some of the pretexts for the campaign to begin. In 2006, Oxfam wanted to improve access to land and resources for women farmers in Uttar Pradesh, which was one of the focus states where we work in. Oxfam India and Gorakhpur Environmental Action Group conducted a study to understand whether government schemes actually reached women farmers in UP. A study was conducted, which was 2,500 women were interviewed in 5 regions: Western UP, Eastern UP, Rohilkhand, Central, and Bundelkhand region. And the data showed that 56% of agriculture work was done by women, while men did 5.5% of the work, and the rest was done jointly. 4% women had access to Kisan credit cards, 6% women owned land, of which 81% were widows and 19% were single child. 4% women took decisions related to farming, despite the fact that they were mostly working on the field. 28% women could decide on sales of crops. 92% women did only farm work through the year, yet only 8% could spend the income as they wanted. So, this data shows that although you're working a lot in the field, but you have no control over what you're earning, or you have no decision making power. Um, so we started with in 5 gram panchayats and 50 districts each. Now they've become 70 districts because of bifurcation. And this was led by GAG in coordination with 4 NGOs: Vinobha Seva Ashram, Disha, Pani, and Samarpan. Oxfam India supported Aaroh since the beginning. Uh, Aaroh campaign, for the first 2 years, it was more of a formative year. The key things that happened was, of course, the release of the study, which happened simultaneously across the state, which was a huge impact. Then the Aaroh Mahila Kisan Manch was formed in each Gram Panchayat. Now, this was a slightly easier thing to do because SIGs were already formed, but that was just the only easy part, because trying to get women to come for meetings meant that the men always thought that something wrong is going to happen, and so it was decided that men also will be included in these meetings. And so pati patni sammelans were organized. A state level steering committee was formed to lead the campaign. Padyatras were held, because if women farmers had to assert that they are, indeed farmers, they had to hit the road. And 43,000 women participated across the state. 15,000 men came out in support. When I have been with Oxfam for the last 3 years, but I have visited some of these villages where the Aaroh campaign took place. And whenever these women talk about the Padyatra, the one thing they talk about is that we went out in bullock carts. And that is something, that image the men have not been able to erase from their minds. And that has created a huge impact in also asserting their social status as women farmers. The impact which it had was the just not the men, but also the agriculture institutes, the government, the departments, they started taking note. And earlier, while they were ignored, now what was happening was, whenever they went to the agriculture department, they were entertained. Farm tools, equipments, implements, they were provided at subsidized rates. Women farmers were identified for exposure visit to different agriculture institutes. And speaking to a few of these women, you understand that, these women are like 60 years old, 70 years old, but they still go out and they are able to, they learn mushroom cultivation, they come back, take care of the entire family. And so it's very encouraging to see all of that. Uh, they were invited on boards of the Aaroh, of Agriculture Technology Management Agency, which is mostly a male-dominated body, but right now 32 MKM members are on board. Women farmers are now beginning to be recognized as Mahila Kisan. They were invited. They are invited for panel discussions on televisions. In 2008, the Faizabad DM issued executive order that wife should be a co-signatory for all land sale, which was a huge thing because a lot of men were selling off their land to feed the alcohol and gambling habits. Between 2009 and 11, the discussion around joint titles began, and because they realized that gaining access to credit was a problem, because the eligibility was land ownership, women and men had to be convinced that this is a good idea. Men were a little hesitant, but when they realized, well, this is going to add to their income, they kind of agreed to it. For women, it was obviously a win-win situation. So 6,800 men demanded ease of transfer of land titles to joint titles. They wrote to the revenue department. Padyatras, Jan Sunwais, all of this was a constant feature of the Aaroh campaign. The 2 minutes. The other important victory was that MS Swaminathan initiated the Women's Farmers Entitlement Bill in 2011, and this resonated with the campaign. It demanded land rights for women farmers and easy access to credited institution, and also there were approaching the MLAs, and then property rights campaign, all kind. The basic premise, what I'm trying to say, is the fact that a lot of it happened on the road. A lot of it happened in your face campaigns, which were important to assert their status. They even wrote to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, demanding that Women Farmers Day be observed and National and International Award for Women Farmers be set aside. Uh, dem- uh, as a part of the campaign, demands were given to the UP Assembly for co-ownership of agricultural land, waiver of stamp duty on transfer of land within the family. This, to a large extent, has been achieved. The UP government in March 2015 took the initiative to waive off the stamp duty charge during land transfer between next of kin and spouses. From what we understand, there is still some committee which is kind of assessing what is going to happen once the stamp duty is waived off, but it's mostly there. The Aaroh impact, the latest study which has happened shows by the campaign that 18.7% women farmers are landowners. Of these, 86% own agricultural land. 29% women farmers have bought land. 25% women have Kisan credit card against 4% 10 years ago. 92% women have access to farm loans. 19% women took decision on the purchase and sale of livestock. So overall, there has been an improvement in acceptability and accessibility of women farmers. Today, 9,615 women are members of the Aaroh Mahila Kisan Manch. It has reached out to a larger number of people, but these are the members of the Manch. Um, just two slides of photographs which are quite inspirational. This is Suresho, who's also known as the tractor lady. She's almost become the poster girl of Aaroh campaign. And she's Leelavati. She's 60 years old, but she is called the cycle wali just because she has been associated with Aaroh for the last 10 years. She grows her own vegetables. She has bought land in the name of her daughter-in-laws, and she rides, she encourages everybody in the village to do the same thing. So people like Suresha and Nilavati are actually taking the campaign forward, which is a huge thing. And at the end, what I want to say is, when we started, this question was always asked, Mahila Krishak, Kisan ya Sahyogi. And now I think we are very happy to say that, whenever we go out, this is what they say, that Mahila bhi Kisan hai, yahi desh ki shaan hai. Thank you.